Hi, my name's Rafay. Trying to find step 10 in a big book. It's
Hi,
fine. I can remember it. Step 10 mentions in the big book that if we were honest, self-seeking, afraid, dishonest, and I remember my experience with step 10. It was I remember reading in towards the end of that one of those paragraphs says we cease fighting all things. And I remember my first sponsor, I got sober out in Los Angeles in 2016, July 26th, a social worker got me into AA. And then my first sponsor wasn't working out, he was doing old behavior and this. It was really young. It was kind of hard to connect with him. And so the social worker was like, hey, I'll set you up with a guy, are you honest, open, and willing? I'm like, yeah. And so once she set me up with him, he took me through the steps, and when we got to step 10, it was probably I was about to hit a year of sobriety, and we got to step 10, and he had me write everything down, like inventory. The way he did step 10 was he inventoried a lot of things. He would write if you self-seeking, dishonest, selfish, self-centered, or afraid, and so he kind of that was his approach. And then when I started working, when I moved to the Bay Area and I hit 2 years sobriety in the city in San Francisco, I worked with another guy, and he had a lot of sobriety time, a lot of sobriety time. He was really good for me, and so he his way of step 10 was just checking in, like a day at a time and this and that. And so the way he did it was checking in with him, and and then he said, you need to write down, you do, but his was a lot different approach to it. So, but it was good. Step 10 really taught me what I learned from a lot of the sponsor I had in the past. Step 10, I remember Dave telling me out in the city, it's a temperature check. It's like doing a temperature check, or like you're from what I heard in the rooms too, people doing a tune-up on your car, and you're make sure you're honest with your sponsor. It kind of puts you in check mode to where not having a resentment to prevent, it's like, remember one time at the Hermosa Beach Alano Club, someone was saying it's like car insurance. Step 10 is like car insurance. It protects you from, all the other accidents about to happen, stuff like that. So I remember, so that's how I kind of saw step 10 was like a temperature check, like a tune-up, car insurance, but I had to be honest with sponsor, and I had to be honest with myself, and so it's just a daily reprieve, and it really helped alleviate a lot of the issues. I had a lot of problems, and a lot of problems I don't have today, like for instance, this is true, this happened today too. My manager was like, hey, it's 4th of July, I'm gonna go party a little bit. You got this? I was like, I got this. And then she came back with a bunch of pies from Nations and this and that. And I was like, okay, cool. But, I wasn't resentful. 10 years ago, probably would have been resentful. I'm like, oh my God, I'm doing her work for her and this and that. I was like, she is who she is. And, it's fine. I wasn't resentful. I wasn't dishonest. I wasn't self-seeking. I was just really zoned into my work. And when came time to come to clock out, I was like, see ya. But, and I was pretty grateful for that. So I was able to, that's what kind of this program's given me, is to set my own boundaries for myself, find a connection with a higher power of my own understanding, or God. I know this group was really close with the Pacific group out in LA, because the social worker, she got sober with the Pacific group out in the 70s with Clancy. So she had a connection with that too. So, and I remember Clancy's group was pretty solid. They were really on their recovery pedestal. They were really on it. So, so yeah, it's been good. Step 10's really been life-changing. It's really given me that daily reprieve. And I say my prayers every morning. The 3rd step, St. Francis, and 7th step, right after I make my bed. Just my own routine I have. Then I go get my black coffee made. Then I'll do my daily reflections reading. Then I actually will read On Awakening every morning, or I'll read the step 10 in the morning. I'll read it at night. Was I self-seeking, dishonest, or afraid? And it kind of really puts me in a check. I'm like, okay. It's really puts me in the center of things with with Serenity and stuff, so I don't know, am I talking too much, or let me know?
No, you're doing great, whatever you want.
Oh, okay, yeah, I mean, I can stop anytime too, so yeah, Steps in been good, besides that, not really much, I've been working with a guy named Father Tom for the past year. I met him
Oh,
at the, connected with him at the 11th service here when he spoke year ago, and then, been working with him in both programs at Al-Anon and AA. So, yeah, I've been doing this Tuesday 6:30 meeting, but yeah, we check in once a week, we talk. We have conversations, we talk about the steps, recovery and this, that, and then we kind of just go about our days. So it's been pretty good with them though, yeah. I'm not walking on water with them, but and I know that name, Father Tom, sounds like you're gonna be walking on water with them, but it's not, yeah. But, yeah, that's about it. No,
Cool.
thanks.